Hey everyone, my name is Ravan and in this video we are going to build a Zoom clone using Flutter and Firebase for Android and iOS.
Oh my god! Wow!
So let me show you a quick demo of the app. Let me log in. So there's a login functionality powered by Firebase Auth. We'll do the Google sign in. I'll click on continue and select an email. It will log me in as you can see. So now I have the option to create a new meeting and join a new meeting. So let me create a new meeting. I click on new meeting and you can see that we are getting connected to the meeting and we are in the meeting. Just a one click thing. It also generates a random ID for us as you can see and shows us the time. Now you have basic all the functionalities that you would see in a Zoom clone. So you can mute everyone, you can share a YouTube video, you can start a live stream, all of that stuff. You can see it in the options. You also have the option to mute and say something and to switch on the video. So let me join in using another device, which is the Android device. I'll click on join meet and let me copy the room ID, which is 103.00449. And as you can see, when I'm trying to join in, it will ask me if I want to connect my audio or turn off my video. All of that are by default to true, but I can change any of these settings. So you can see I can modify any. So let me say, let me not connect to audio and join in. Now you can see it asks us for our permission. I'll click on while using the app only. And here you can see my audio is switched on. I can do this. Now this dark mode is there because my phone has the dark mode feature on, but you get the basic idea. Now if I say something, let's say over here, hello, I hope you can hear the audio. I'm not sure if you could hear from the iOS device, but I made you sound from the Android device. So you get the idea. You have multiple participants. You can even chat over here. So let's say hey, and I'll click over here and join the chat conversation over here. You can see here. Now the Revan contacts is from the email that I've used to register. And here if I say hey again, hi, let's say, you can see Naman Ranad, which is another email display name that we got from Google. So this is the app we are going to build. Another feature that's great over here is if I select to go over here, let's say I clicked on the home button. Here I get the picture in picture enabled and it's very customizable. You can play along with everything and we're going to build this app. We are going to add extra functionalities. So I've exited the meeting and if you go in the meeting section, you can see the room, the name that we joined and the date we joined on. You can customize all of that and all of this data is stored in Firebase. So this is what we're going to build. We can even log out and there's full authentication happening. So no worries about that. So before continuing, the prerequisites for this tutorial is just to have a basic knowledge of Flutter, Firebase and Dart. No more prerequisites are required. We'll build the whole application together. Just a basic knowledge is enough. No need to be an expert in this. One last thing, our Discord server has been set up. The link will be mentioned in the description. Do make sure to join in if you're interested and chat along with the developers. It's a pretty cool community with over 40 members as of now. So let's start with the app now. So now first thing we need to do is create a Flutter project. But before doing that, I want to show you the Flutter version we are using. So this is the Flutter version we are using, which is Flutter 2.10.2, which is the latest one. So now let's create a Flutter project. I'll create it in the desktop. So I'll use CD desktop to go in the desktop place. And now I'll run the command flutter create and I'll name this. So since I have Zoom clone already created over here, I'll say Zoom clone tutorial. And I'll click on enter. This will create a fully made Flutter project with all the necessary boilerplate code. Now I'll migrate to this project. So I'm clicking on tab just to go to the other suggestion that it has given me over here. And I've click on enter. Now to open it in my favorite code editor, which is VS Code, I'll just type code with a full stop because I'm in the directory in which I want to open the code. And I'll click on enter. This has opened it in VS Code. Now what I like to do is go to the lib folder, and over here I will remove all the boilerplate code, not all actually, but all the non-necessary stuff. And I've added an extension of comment remover which I can access by doing Command Shift P on Mac. And over here I can just type remove all comments, which will remove all the comments for us, and then we can go up again. This has removed all the comments from this file, not the other file. If we go in pubspec.yaml, you can find the file, the comments, but only from the current file we are in, which is a pretty cool extension. Link will be mentioned in the description below. Now over here, just for testing, let me type constant text and let's say hello world, and let me open my iOS simulator, which can be done using open-a simulator, and I'll click on enter. Let me also terminate this terminal that I have. Our iPhone has loaded up, so now we can run our app. You can run the app in two ways, which is using Flutter run, or you can just go over here, click on run, and run without debugging, or run start debugging, any one you prefer. I'll go with this, and let's wait for our app to launch. Alright, our app has loaded up, and now if we go over here, you can see hello world. So now the next thing we need to work on is having the screen and creating the design of the login screen. Well, let's do that. So the first thing we need to do is get the colors.dart file, which you can come over here and find. The link will be mentioned in the description below. All you need to do is copy all of this and add it to the colors.file. So to save the colors.file, we are going to save it in a folder called utils, which is basically all the utilities we need. And over here, let's just create a file called colors.dart and save it over here. Having that in place, we need to even add a theme to our app, and the theme is going to be of the dark theme because that's your zoom we are going to create. Now we can do theme data.dark, and let's call it as a function. And then we need to copy with all the existing properties that theme data.dark has, and we just need to replace the scaffold background color, which is essentially the background color. If I save this, you can see, not yet you can see because I have not added a scaffold, and this is a scaffold background color. But now if I do background color, and let's create a file for that, a class. So let's create it in the screens folder, and let's call it login screen because that's the first screen we are going to work on. Let me import material dart, then I'll create a stateful widget. Let's create that only, and let's add a const to the constructor as well. Now we need to return a scaffold. Now doing that much, we should be getting our results. So if I replace the home with a constant login screen, I think everything should work, and it does. We are getting this background. Now if I remove this theme, actually just this copy with function, you'll see the difference. So the next thing we need to do is create routes for our file. So we are going to use named routes for the navigation in our app, and we're going to have /login, which is the screen that we created right now, and we'll have context, and we'll pass in a constant login screen for now. Let's do this. You won't see any changes, but now working on the login screen, we need to remove this debug banner that we can see. So to do that, we're going to do debug show check mode banner and set it to false, and also change the title of our application to, let's say, zoom clone. Right here you can find it. Now let's go to the login screen and work on this on this part of our application. So now we need to return a scaffold where there will be a body, and we need a column because we need to show an image over here somewhere like this, and then a rounded button. So let's have that. So the first thing we need is the children, and the children will first be a text that I forgot to mention, which is just this. So what we need in our application is basically something like this. Here we have a text, then our image, and then a rounded navigation bar, something like this. So to do that, what we're going to do is, so in the children, we're going to have a constant text of start or join a meeting, and then we need to style it. And these all styling that I do in my application, I just use trial and error methods just to get the output that's pleasing to my eyes. So you can do the same. It takes time and it's like random values testing and then going forward. Alright, now we have that. Now it's right at the right at the top. We don't want that. So you can either wrap this column with a safe area widget that will avoid all the notches, so it will come down over here, but I don't want that either. So what I'm going to do is return a column, but in the column's main axis alignment property, which means that we can set the configuration of how the elements in the column are going to be arranged, we can have main axis alignment dot center, because I want everything to be center aligned. And as and when the things get piling up, like the image, the buttons, then as and then we can just go up and up. You get the idea, right? Alright, so after this we need to add an image. Now to get the image, we need to go to this URL. I'll mention this in the description below. It's available in the source code. So what you can do is go to the onboarding.jpg file and, well, let me click on it and click on download, or you can just right click and download to the images. So now over here we are going to create a new folder called assets, and in that we are going to create images. Now in this assets folder, I like to keep images and fonts, but we are not using any external fonts. So I'll just drag it to the images folder. Here you can see, 1 second. I think we copied it to the wrong file and it should be in this over here. Awesome. So after this is done, let me remove this. And here we need to add an image asset. So we'll have image.asset, and what do we name it? Assets/images/onboarding.jpg. Now we know that if we need to use image.asset, we need to mention it in the pubspec.yaml file as well. So let's go to the pubspec.yaml file, and I open this dialog box using Control and P. So you can do the same if you're on VS Code, and scroll down. You can uncomment both these lines and paste whatever you copied over here to here, and it should work fine. So we have that. Now it will automatically run flutter pub-get, and if it's not running, then you can open the terminal once again. You can go here and type flutter pub-get, and it will run the same thing for you again. If there is any issue, it will let you know over here in the output section. Right now in the debug console, you can see we are getting an error like this. So this is because we haven't restarted our application. When there is any changes in the pubspec.yaml file, we need to make sure that we rerun our app again, and then the changes will come in. Alright, now since that is happening and we have our text and image, let's work on the other thing, which is a custom button that we want. So let's create a widgets folder, because, well, I like to separate it into widgets. And now here we can create custom button dot. Let me import material dart first. And now we are going to create a stateless widget. So let me call stateless widget, and I'll name it custom button itself. You can name anything, but I'm too bad at naming stuff. Let me return an elevated button here, and elevated button has a few required properties, which is child and on pressed. We have that. Alright, now what do we want the child as? Now the child will be a simple text that will say whatever the custom button asks us to do. So for now, let's get it from your final string text, and we need to require this text. So we'll have required this dot text, and here we can pass in the text and the style, which will be a normal text style of font size 17. Alright, now even I'll save this and add custom button over here. Now it requires a text for now, as I'm saying for now. So let's say login. And I don't think we have imported the custom button, so let's import this. I brought this option menu by clicking command and full stop, and then importing this library, which comes right at the top. Alright, for now, so let's save this, and here you can see the login button and this, both of them showing up pretty beautifully. So that means our work is being done. But now you can see that there's a difference. I want this thing of start or join a meeting to be a little bit more up, and this to be a little bit more down of the image. Now you can see that the image is in the center, so like we want both of them to go up and down. So what we can do is wrap this image with the padding widget. And instead of doing all 8, which we save and we can see that there's not much big of a deal over here, what we can do is symmetrical, and we can do vertical, because we don't need to go in the left and right direction. We just want to go up and down. So that's what vertical allows us to do. Instead of writing only top 8 and bottom 8, we'll do vertical 8, and 8 is pretty small value. So let me do 28, and it's still not looking good. So let's do 38. Now it feels pretty good. You can do even more if you like, but let's just stop at 38. I feel that if it's a small value, you can use the normal values. Otherwise, you'll have to use media queries just to make it responsive. But let's not go over there. Now the next thing we want to do is, after this elevated button and we have a child, now we need to style our button. So the first thing we need to do is give it a color, and we don't want this color, right? So what we can do is replace this color, and to replace this color we are going to use a style property which is in the elevated button, and we can use elevated button dot style from, and over here we can pass in the primary color, and the primary color is going to be the button color, which is mentioned in the colors.dot file if you go in the utils package. Here you can see it's a different type of blue, but it's still a blue, but it's the color I've extracted from the Zoom app, so we can use that. And here you can see it's looking good enough. Now let's increase its width and make it a bit rounded. So let me have a minimum size first, and we'll have a constant size, which we'll have double dot infinity, which is the maximum space available, and 50, which is the height of our application. If you hover over this, you can see a width and a height property. This is the width, which is all the available space, and the 50 value, which is the height. Here you can see that it came like this. Now we don't want it like this, right? Because we need to curve it from here and from here. We don't want it to take so much space. So what we can do is wrap this elevated widget button with a padding. Other approach you could take, by the way, would be to minus something from here, but let's just use padding, and then we can have edge insets dot all 18, whereas that would be a pretty good padding. And here you can see the button went a bit more down, and now it's looking good. Now let's just round it, because that's what the Zoom application has as well. So now over here in our style, we'll have a shape property, and the shape property is going to be rounded rectangle border. As the name suggests, we want it to be a rectangle. We don't want it to be a perfect circle. If it would be a circle, it would be something like this. Let me draw it out. Something like this. And we don't want that, right? We want our application to look something like this. That's why we are going to use rounded rectangle border. And here we're going to have a border radius, which will be border radius dot circular 30, and a side, because we want let's, now if we save this much, you can see our app showing up. But if you just examine it properly, you can see that there's a bit of blue border color that we can see. Now that blue background color is because of the default theme of our application, like the default blue color that we replaced with, And to replace that blue color with the button color that we have in our colors.dart file, we'll use a side property, which is constant border side, and it will be a button color. This will add our custom border color, and now this looks good. Alright, now we need to do something about the onPress property. So we need to get the onPress property, which we'll do from constructor as well, final, and this won't be a string, right, because it's a function. So we are going to do, either you can do this, which is function, and it's called onPress. Now you cannot pass in this because it's just storing the address of the function, and we don't want that. We want to call it, so that's why we are passing this. Else you can use final void callback onPressed and require it from the constructor. Here we can pass the onPressed property as well, and now it's working. So now let's go over here and click and have an onPressed property as well. We're not getting the autocorrect option, not sure why. Now that error came in because I typed in a full stop instead of a comma over here. So yeah. Now in our login screen, what do we do when we click on the Google sign in? And by the way, we just need to replace this with Google sign in instead of login. But you can keep login or sign in because that's what Zoom has, because it just has a sign in or a sign up button. But we are not adding that. We're just adding a Google sign in. Right? So now we need to connect to the, so whenever we click on this button, we need to add a Google authentication, and to do that we're going to use Firebase. So let's configure that. So now for the Google sign in, we are going to require a few plugins, and we need to connect to the Firebase authentication or Firebase in general. So I'll mention all of these packages in the description below. You can check them out and read the readme, which is preferred method. You should always go through it. So now you can see that these packages are published 3 days ago and are maintained by Google itself, so it's pretty safe to use them. Alright, now let's add them, and to add them I'm going to press Command Shift P again because I have a pubspec assist named VS Code extension or package, so I have to add them. And if I type something over here or some package, it will add that to the pubspec.yaml file by getting the latest version from the net, and then, well, just adding it to the pubspec.yaml file and including that in our project. So I can type cloud_firestore to add the Firestore plugin in our pubspec.yaml file. Then we can have Firebase core. Then we can have Firebase auth. And the last plugin we need is Google Sign In. This will allow us to do Google Sign In authentication with Firebase. So yeah, now having that in place, we need to go to the Firebase console. Even this link will be mentioned in the description, and click on Add Project. Now here you can have any project name. I'll now type in Zoom clone tutorial because again I've created this project over here. And I'm going to disable the analytics, but you can do you can enable it. I mean, it's up to you. If you're a business, then analytics is a great thing for your application. Now in the meantime that's happening, let's make sure all of our stuff is happening. And here we are getting an error because it doesn't know what this is. So to fix that, what we can do is go to the login screen again, and here we can run flutter pub-get. Actually pub-get, not whatever this I've typed. Now you can see that the error has gone away, so we can go back, and here you see no no error for Firebase auth web. Alright, so now our project is also ready for Zoom clone tutorial. Let's click on continue, and here let's go to the authentication tab. Click on get started, and here when this loads up, you can see additional providers. Like you can have so many sign-in ways for your application. You can have any of them, and we are going to have Google, but that's the only one we are going to do. If you want sign in with email and password or anything like that, I've mentioned that in multiple videos of mine where we create TikTok or Instagram. So you can check that out. Now over here we have enabled Google sign in, but before that we also need to enable Google like Firebase Firestore, because we need to save the user data to our Firestore as well. And here we're going to select Southeast Asia because I'm in Southeast Asia, and click on enable, which it will do for us. Now let's get started with the on-pressed functionality for our Google sign-in. And to do that, we're going to have a lib folder, and in the lib folder we're going to have a directory where we call resources, because as and when our app grows bigger, it will be hard to maintain all the logic stuff with the UI files that we have. And here we are going to create auth methods.dart. So suppose you want to increase the app, like make it a full production ready app, you can just clone this repository afterwards, or just follow along with this architecture, because that's the one I prefer. Here we are going to initialize Firebase auth, and we're going to call Firebase auth dot instance just to get the instance of the auth variable. And here let's create a function for sign in with Google. Let's create it as an asynchronous function, and since it's an async, let's try and catch it so that if there's any exception we get to know and we can resolve them, basically handle all the exceptions. And now we have added Google sign in to our pubspec.yaml file. So here let's create a Google user and let's sign them in. So we can have final Google sign in account, which can be null, Google user is equal to await Google sign in dot sign in. So we signed in the user, and here we are now getting final Google sign in authentication, Google auth, which is equal to await, and we'll take this Google user variable and check for authentication. So like authentication, not check for it, but just get the Google sign in authentication type for it. Now we will get the credential of the user, which will be Google auth provider dot credential, not like this, dot credential. And here we are going to provide the access token, which we'll get from Google auth here, access token, and we need to get an ID token, which we'll get from Google auth dot ID token. Now all of this code is mentioned on the README section of Flutterfire, which is the official Flutter and Firebase documentation. You can copy them from there, or you can just follow along typing if you like to type. Then we need to create a user credential where our Firebase auth package comes in. So we'll have user credential equal to await underscore auth, which is the variable that we created here, dot sign in with credential, and we'll pass in the credential that we had here. Now we are perfectly signed in, and I mean it will even reflect in the authentication tab of our application. Alright, now that means after doing this much, all our data is going to be stored in Firebase authentication, but I want to even add the data to our Firestore, right? Because I want the data to be shared in our database, just to for my knowledge that how many users are there, and also to store extra data, like we're going to store the user's meetings, right? Like whatever meetings he has attended. So we're going to store that as well. So we need to keep track of our users in Firestore database. Alright. So now what we need to do is, here we can have a user variable, which will be user credential dot user, and now we can check. Let me put equal to. Now we can check if user is not equal to null. That means there is a user and the sign in has happened perfectly fine. We can have if user is not equal to null, and if the user credential dot additional user info dot is new user, meaning that the user has created his application just right now, then we need to add the data to the Firebase, right? Else otherwise the data is there in the Firebase already. Alright, if you don't get it, I'll explain it in a bit of time again, but let me just type this code out. Now we need to store to the Firebase. To store to the Firebase, I'm going to initialize a Firestore variable as well, which will be Firebase Firestore, which is equal to Firebase Firestore dot instance. And here we'll take the Firestore instance and do Firebase Firestore dot collection users, which is our collection name, dot document user dot uid dot set. And with this set method, we are going to add data to our application, to our Firestore dashboard, as we can say. Right, now what all do we need to store? Well, first of all, we can get the username or display name, whatever you call it, and that will be user dot display name. Then we can have the UID, which is user dot UID, as we have used over here. Then we can have a profile photo. Now, if you want to store any additional details, you can do so as well. So we'll have photo URL. And yeah, this is all the stuff that we need to store. Now, explaining this if condition to you again, basically here you can see that the user is nullable. So user credential.user can be null. So here we are checking if the user is not null, that means all is going well. Then we need to check if the user credential dot additional user info. With this we get all the necessary info of the user, like any additional info we need, like profile, provider ID, username, anything like that you can use. So here we have is new user, meaning if the user has been created just right now, then we can check with is new user. And now if it's new user, then we need to store to the Firebase. If it's not a free new user, meaning the user has already signed up before, that means he's logging in, then we don't need to store to the database, right? Because we have already stored it. Why send one more request to our database? And here, since this is going to be an asynchronous process, here you can see future void, we can just do await, but it won't matter because the return type is void and it doesn't return anything at the end of the day. Alright, so after this, all our application part is done, but I want to make a few more changes. Like I want to mention the type of our function, which will be future, and if we didn't return anything, it would be void, but we are going to return a boolean value. And here we are going to have a boolean res equal to false value, meaning that there is a result, like what is the outcome of this function. And when will the result be true? Whenever the user is not equal to null, right? Which is here. Not over here. Make sure to not put it in the nested if condition, because here we are checking if it's a new user. And then only we are doing. But if it's not a new user, if it's a user logging in, then also our result is going to be true. That means the authentication process has been completed. And here the result is going to be false, but that's our initial value as well. So if we don't change it, it's not a big deal. Else we can change as well, no problem. And now we are getting this error message and we don't want to print this error message. So what we are going to do is have a build context and let's show a snack bar. Now to show a snack bar, we'll be showing snack bars multiple times in our application, like whenever we'll be using an asynchronous process, just to give a good user experience that if you have any error, we are going to send it back to you. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go to the utils folder and here create a utils.dart file where we are going to have a show snack bar function. And here we are going to return a build context, like we are going to receive build context because displaying snack bar requires context. And then we are also going to have a text. Here we are going to return a scaffold messenger dot of context dot show snack bar, and this will be snack bar, and we want the text as text. Now the positive point of using this function is whenever we use this show snack bar, whenever in our entire application, or you clone this repo and then you try to modify it according to your needs, then all you need to do is to display a customized snack bar is just change the properties of this snack bar here. Like suppose you want elevation, you want to change the background color, or you can do it with this single function and it will affect your entire app. And that's a pretty good thing, right? And now you want to not show the snack bar. So what you can do, show the snack bar, sorry. So, and what do you want to show in the text message? So it will be E. And now E won't give us the proper object, right? Like it's returning an object, and if we do .toString, it will convert the object to a string, but it won't be a really good error message. So what we can do is use on Firebase auth exception, which will catch all the Firebase auth exceptions that can happen. If we don't put that, we put this only, then it will catch any exception that occurs, including Firebase auth exception. But if we do on Firebase auth exception, it will only catch the Firebase auth exception. And if we put that in our E, you can see that it's a Firebase auth exception, right? So it will give us additional properties that we can use with something like e.message. And this will just show the message of the Firebase auth exception object. If you don't understand this, just try to make an error in your Google sign-in and you'll see the error that's showing up. Now we need to return the res as well because it's of the type future boolean, and you can see all our errors have gone away. So now let's take this and go to the login screen. Here let's initialize our function called final auth methods. I'm going to mark this as private in case, auth methods just goes in some other way. Like just for safety, it won't go outside of this because we are in the class login screen state, and this login screen state is a private class itself. But just for safety purposes, let's do this. Now let's do auth methods. So now we'll go over here, we'll make this function asynchronous as well. And here we'll have boolean res equal to auth methods dot sign in with Google, and we'll pass in the context which we receive from the build context here. Now if the res is correct, so that means we got the variable. So if the Google authentication was successful, what do we need to do? Well, we need to go to the home screen, right? So what we can do is in our screens, we can create home screen. Here we are going to import material package, and we are going to call it stateful widget because we are going to need that. We won't be needing stateless widget because we are going to call set state in our home screen. I have built the application beforehand, so I know about it. Now we can again go to the main.dart file and register a route, which will be /home screen, and we'll have context that just displays a constant home screen. Here, if the res is equal to true, so we can use navigator dot push named because we have a named constructors, and here we are going to pass in /home. Actually, home sounds better, not home screen, for our user as well. So let's do that. Now let's see what error we are getting. We're not getting any error. Awesome. So now since we added extra packages of Firebase auth and everything, let's restart our app and run without debugging. And let's wait for our application to load up. And actually before running, there are a few things we need to run, and we even got this error which we'll resolve. So actually I just realized that we didn't add any app to our Firebase, right? We need to connect this app to our Firebase console. So we can click on Apple, and let's get the app bundle ID first of all. To get the app bundle ID, just go to the iOS, right click and click on open in Xcode. This will open it in Xcode, which is like the where you do iOS development. So from here we're going to get the bundle ID, and iOS apps will just run on Mac or Mac OS. It will not work on Windows unless you have a virtual machine running or something, some configuration like that. It's not going to run and you won't be able to set it up correctly. So I won't recommend it, and I would recommend you skipping to the Android part, because that's the only thing you can do on Windows. Alright, now let's have Zoom clone Android as the app nickname and click on register app. Now we need to download the Google service info.plist, and it has downloaded for us. Let's click on next. Next, we don't need to follow all of this because that's for initialization in iOS development using Swift or Objective-C, which are the programming languages for iOS development. And we continue to the console. And actually, it wasn't Android, it was iOS, and we didn't name it properly. Make sure to rename it properly, but I'm not going to do that now. Let's go to our downloads, and from here, let's select this and pass it to our runner. Make sure that you've ticked this, this, and this, and click on finish. Now let's close our Xcode, and now we need to make some more configurations. So just to run it on iOS, we need to add some more conditions, like we need to go to the pod file. Here we need to uncomment this line and put in iOS platform iOS 10, because that's how the process goes. Because Firebase requires a minimum pod level version of 10. Now we can run let's say cd iOS just to go to the iOS directory, and here we will run pod install, and it will install all the necessary dependencies. Alright, having that in place, we also need to make a configuration for Google sign-in, else our app will clash. If you go over here, you can see that in the Google sign-in package, we need an iOS integration. We need to make some more steps just to get the iOS integration running, and you can see it requires iOS 9.0 or higher, so make sure to do that. And now we have completed step 1, 2, 3 and 4 and even 5, actually even 6. Sorry for that, but we have completed all the 6 steps, so we just need to take the 7th step, which is just copy all of this and go to iOS runner info.plist. So again, I'll press Command P and go to info.plist. Here at the bottom, after this, all the keys, I will put this key. I'll take this much, select this much, and go over here. Now, as you can see, to do, replace this value. So we need to replace the reverse client ID with this string. So let's just remove this and go to our Google services info.plist file, and here we need the reverse client ID, which is this part here. So we can copy this much, go back to over here, and here we're going to replace the string, which is this part, which is my plist file, so that it works, right? Alright, now we can go back to our home, like the root project, and now let's try to run our application on our iOS. I've clicked on run without debugging, and let's see what happens. Our app has finally loaded up. So if you come over here, you can see that an exception was thrown, auth method was called. Now the main error is this: no Firebase app default has been created. So we need to run the Firebase initialize app, and that's why we are getting this red screen. So we can go to the main.dart file, make this function asynchronous, and call await Firebase dot. Let me import the Firebase core package and call initialize app. We get this Firebase dot initialize app from the Firebase core method. Now we have done this, but we also need to ensure that the widgets have loaded up, and then our Firebase initialize app is running. So we can do widgets flutter binding dot ensure initialized. Alright, if you hover over this, you'll get more info on what this is. Alright. Alright, so now if we restart our app, everything should work fine. and now we are able to see our app running properly. Now if I click on Google sign in, you can see it's working. It's not crashing our app as of now. We click on continue. We select our email, and we are not getting any error messages, and we are also on the home screen because our home screen doesn't have any scaffolding yet. Alright, now if we go back to our console and go to the authentication tab, here you can see position emailer. And now if I go to the Firestore database, here we have users collection with the UID, and well, we have our data stored over here, which is pretty cool. Now let's configure this for Android. So for the Android part, we need to go back to the Google sign-in plugin just to ensure that there is any extra configuration required. Well, we need to register our application. We'll get a Google services.json file, and then we have done all the stuff required. So we can go back to our project overview, click on add app, click on Android, and we need to get a package name. You can get it by going to build.gradle, not this one, but the build.gradle, which is the Android/app one, which is in the app directory. And if we scroll down, you can see com.example.zoom clone tutorial, which is my application ID. I'll save it over here. We'll call it zoom clone tutorial. And we also need to get a SHA1 key. So we also need to get a SHA1 key, and that is because it is required for Google sign-in or phone number sign-in. We need it for Google sign-in or phone number. Now to get the SHA1 key, go to your terminal and print this line. I'll mention this line in the description below. Make sure to use this line and click on enter. You'll get your SHA1 key. Now I have this SHA1 key. What I'm going to do is copy this and paste it over here. I'll click on register app. I'll download the Google services.json file. I'll click on next, and we need to follow these methods. So first of all, I need to go to my build.gradle, which is in the project, and copy this line. I've clicked over here and copied it. I'll go to the build.gradle Android here and paste it over here. Now I need to go to our project app directory and build.gradle. So I can go to this Android app and click over here. Now let's copy this line, and we need to scroll up, paste it below apply plugin Kotlin Android, or over here as well, anywhere, but it should be somewhere here or just over here. Both of these stuff work. Now we can go back over here. Actually, we need to make more configurations in our build.gradle Android app file. So here we need to set the minimum SDK version to 19. And we need to enable multi-dex. So we'll do multi-dex enabled and set it to true. Alright. And then we can go to the login screen, clear this off, and let's get our Pixel 5 emulator up and running, which is this part. Let's get this aside. Now I'll select the Pixel 5 from here, which is this device, and then click on run without debugging again, and let's wait for this app to load up. And as you can see, we've got an error over here. Now this error is because, well, first of all, let's just complete this. We left it midway. And now we need to go to our Finder. In the downloads, we downloaded the Google services file, but we didn't paste it in our Android folder, right? Now these are the mistakes even I make, like after making a lot of projects in Firebase. So it's okay to have these kind of forgetting issues in your app as well. Now let's rename this to Google services.json file and not -2. And now let's run our app again, and hopefully we have not missed anything this time. And as you can see, our app has loaded up and it's ready. So now if I click on Google sign in here, You signed in as possession emailer because that's a email I've used in our app, in my application as well. And now if I go, I mean, we are on the home screen already because that's what our home screen looks like. So now the only issue I have with the app right now is if I restart the app, you can see if I restart the app, we are again on the login screen, and we don't want that. We need to persist our state. So to persist our state, we are going to the main.dart file, and let me close the terminal for now. And in the home screen, in the home property, we need to get a stream builder. Now, what is the stream builder, right? So this stream builder will build the widgets according to the stream. And what is the stream going to check? Well, it's going to check the auth methods, like has the auth changed or not. So that's what we're going to do. So just to separate the UI from our logic, we are going back to our auth methods, and here we are going to create a getter for our user. So stream user get auth changed, and here we are going to access the underscore auth and check if the auth state changes or not. So like auth dot auth changes, auth state changes, right? We use this function auth state changes. And now if we go back here in our main.dart file, and in the stream we are going to return auth methods dot auth changes or auth changed, anything would work, whatever you name it. And now we're going to pass in a builder. Now this builder, we're going to get a context and a snapshot containing all the details of the user, right? Because that's what we have passed to our stream, and auth state changes. This will return a user with a question mark, like if it's nullable or not, right? Now over here in this, with this snapshot, we're going to access all the data that we got through the stream. So why are we using stream, right? So whenever the user auth state changes, so suppose the user's auth state changes, suppose the user has logged in. So to display the changes in real time, we're going to use stream builder. Here we are going to do if snapshot dot connection state is equal to connection state dot waiting. Then we are going to return a constant center child circular progress indicator, because the connection state is waiting, right? I mean, we haven't gotten our stream builder's data yet, right? Now if snapshot dot has data, not over here, I'm sorry, you have to go outside this if function. If snapshot dot has data, then you want to return a home screen. So you can do return constant home screen, and after that we're going to return a constant login screen. Now what does this mean? Here we are, so snapshot can be of two types, right? I mean, it can actually be of four types, as you can see over here. Connection state dot active, done, none, waiting. So here we are basically checking if the snapshot's connection state is waiting. That means we haven't gotten the snapshot yet, so it's waiting. So we are going to return a circular progress indicator. Now if the snapshot has data, and that means it has brought some data for us. That means that the user has logged in. So we are sending it back to the home screen. And if it doesn't have data, if the connection state is not waiting, then we are going to return a login screen because it doesn't have any data, right? Now if we restart our app, go back, we are on the home screen and we are not getting any error as such, but you get the idea, right? We are on the home screen. That means our state has been persisted. Now the next thing we need to work on is, well, showing a bottom navigation bar, a top bar where we'll show the list of icons, and then the body just saying click a button or anything like that. Let's do that. Alright, so let's just close all the save files, and now let's go to our home screen, convert this container to a scaffold, because we don't want to show a black screen that looks very ugly, right? For now, let's have a bottom navigation bar, and now the bottom navigation bar has to show, well, a few things. So now it requires a few required arguments that we are going to fill in. let's add items, because that's the only argument we need, but like, which is the required field, but we need more arguments. So let's add our items, and these are going to be a constant because we just need a simple bottom navigation bar item. And this bottom navigation bar item will have an icon of icons.comment_bank, which will be for meet and chat. So like, that's what it will say. That's what, yeah. And now we can copy this. We need to have at least 2 bottom navigation bar items, at least. That's why we're getting this error, but we're going to have 5. The second one will say meetings, and now icons.log clock. Then this will have contacts, like person_outline, which will stand for contacts. And then finally we need a settings, so we'll have settings_outline, which will be settings. Alright, now if we go back, you can see that our footer has come over here, but it's looking really bad. So let's give it a color. We'll have a color which will be background color, and we want it to be footer color, not gutter, footer color from our colors.dart file. And here you can see our footer showing up. Now we don't want it to be a bottom navigation bar item. We want it to show up for bottom navigation bar, not for an item, for the whole bar itself. That's why the footer color. Now let's restart the app, and now it still needs certain changes. So we need a selected item color, and the selected item color is going to be colors.white. So whatever we select, suppose this is the icon that's selected for now, it's going to be, well, white color. Then we need an unselected item color, which will be colors.gray. As you can see, they brighten it up a bit. Now we need an on tap, and the on tap is going to be a function that we'll create called on page changed. We'll take this on page changed function, put it here, and we are going to have on page changed. Now what is the on page changed going to do? Well, we need to have a global variable called int page is equal to 0, which is a selected item that we have, like the selected item index, so to say. And now whenever there is an on page changed, it will get an int page from the constructor over here. So like, if I go over here you can see it returns an integer and then an on tap. So here we are going to get in the constructor int page, and now we are going to set state and set the global variable page to the local variable page, like the local argument, like the parameter that we have. And now just to reflect the changes, like if we save anything, it won't do anything because we haven't set the selected item index. So that's like not selected, I think it's called current index. So the current index is going to be the page. So let me have page, right? And now if I do this, you can see our navigation bar item showing up. But now as you can see, we don't want this kind of bottom navigation bar, right? I mean, if you want, you can just keep this, it looks good, but we don't want this kind of bar. We want a static bar, which is like the zoom bar. So what we're going to do is set the type to bottom navigation bar type dot fixed, and now it has become a normal one, and now it has also gained its color, which looks so good, right? Awesome. So now you can see that this icon here doesn't look well. I mean, you can see that the text of this icon is pretty small, and when we do this, its font size increases. You get the point? So what I'm trying to say is, whenever we select on the item, you can see its font size increases. So we need to make sure that the selected font size and the unselected font size are of the same size. So if we do selected font size and hover over this, you can see that its default is 14. You can see over here. So what we need to do is change unselected font size to 14 as well. Think it's this way. Yeah. And now if we make any changes, you can see both have the same size throughout that. Pretty good. Alright, so the next thing we want is, well, just to display a list of, first an app bar which says the meet and chat or meetings or whatever we want, and then a row of icons which will say, about the create meeting, join meeting. So here at the top, we're going to have an app bar first of all. The app bar will say, well, elevation will be 0 because it provides an unnecessary elevation all the time. The title is going to be a constant text which says meet and chat. For iOS, it's going to show up in the center, right? And for Android, it will show up over here. So we can explicitly mention center title as true. And then finally, a background color, which will be a background color, right? Because we want both of these to merge up. Now, if I remove the elevation from here, you can see a bit of a shadow, right? And we don't want that. We want both of these to merge up pretty quickly. And that's why we set elevation to 0. Awesome. So after this, we need a body. And in the body, we are going to have, well, a list of icons. Let me just draw it out for you. So we have a row here. And in that row, we are going to have an icon here, an icon here, an icon here, and a fourth icon here somewhere. And then we have this much space just to show whatever extra information we want to show. But we are not going to show anything ridiculous as such, So let's go back here. And then we'll have a column. And the column is going to be children. Now the children will have a row because, well, we have, as I said, we have a column, then we have a row of all the icons, and then we have all the unnecessary space. So the row will have a children, and the children will have the same kind of buttons or icons, we can say. So we're going to create a new widget so that we can reuse it, and we'll call it home meeting button dot. If you find a more specific variable name, just keep that. I'm very bad at finding a variable name. And then a stateless widget called home meeting button. Then we can have a gesture detector, because we're not actually going to create a button. We're going to make something look like a button, because, well, we don't want actually so many options. We'll have on tap, and we'll have on pressed, which we'll get from the constructor here. So let's get that. Final void callback on pressed, and let's require it from the constructor on pressed. Alright, now in the child, we want a column, and this column is going to have children again. Now, why is this a column, right? I mean, there is this, then a column. I mean, one like this, then like this, then like this, and then like this. So an icon on the top, then text, something like that. Just to explain it to you in a better manner, the icon is going to be a column which is somewhat like this. Then it will have an icon inside of it, and then a text like this. So that's what we are going to create. So in the children, we are going to have a container, not just an icon, because we want to have a background color and some properties like that. So we'll have a decoration because we have a background color to show up. And now the color is going to be a button color. Then a border radius will be the border radius dot circular 16. Then box shadow of a list of box shadow, but it requires a list of box shadow. That's why we're passing in we just want to have a single box shadow. Then a blur radius of 10. Then a color of colors dot black dot with opacity 0.06, and then an offset of const offset of 0.4. All of these values are not, I've just tried and tested and gotten all of this. Now if we go back, we're not seeing any changes because we have not initialized home meeting button. So let's do that. Let's go over here and have an home meeting button. We need an on pressed, and we have nothing for now. Awesome. We're not seeing anything because we have not set a width and a height to our container or a column. So let's pass in a width, and the width is going to be 60. Height, the height is also going to be a 60 because we want it as a square. And here you can see a container showing up. Brilliant. Now we need a child because we need to display an icon inside of this, and the icon is going to be whatever icon the user passes. The color will be colors.white no matter what, and the size is going to be 30. Now we can go back to the top, get the icon data, which is icon, and require it as well. Require this dot icon. Now if we go back to the home screen, we'll fix this error later, but you get the point, right? We just want to display an icon inside of this. Now after this container, we need to leave some space, so we'll have constant sized box, and we need a height of 10, and then we need a text of text, which we'll get from constructor again, and the style is going to be a constant text style, color being colors dot gray. Now we can take this text, go to the top, final string text, and then we're going to require this dot text. Now I think all of our home meeting button options are done, so let's have them. So we'll have text, and for the first home meeting button, we are going to have a text that says new meeting, and then an icon, and the icon is going to be icons.videocam. And let's save this much just to see what we've gotten. Looks pretty good. Now we can have this, paste it down, and we'll have join meeting, and we'll have add box rounded. Again we can copy this, paste it down, and we'll have icons.calendar today. Last time we're going to copy this, and actually we have not edited this, so we need this for scheduling a meet, which we're not going to have in our application, and then a share screen text. So we'll have share screen, and for that let's just show an arrow upward, rounded. Awesome. So let's save this, and you can see that it's showing up, but it's not good as of now. So what we need to do is go to the row and have main axis alignment as main axis alignment dot space evenly, so that it spaces out everything properly, and well, we have everything properly shown, which is insane, right? Now after this, let's go down. If you want to show anything down as specific, you can do that. I'm not going to do that, right? You can do that because that would be pretty interesting what you would do. Then we can have expanded a child, which will be a center child text saying create or join meetings with just a click. I'm not sure why I'm making so many spelling mistakes. Alright, let's put commas just so I can format the document. Alright, so we have done this, and now create or join meeting with just a click. Let's just style it so that it doesn't look such. And now we'll have a font weight, and the font weight will be font weight.bold. We still need to increase its font, so we'll just keep it somewhere like 18. And yeah, looks good. So now we need to work on the new meeting or the join meeting option. So whenever we click on one of these, we get redirected to another screen, and well, let's have the join meeting option for us. Let's do that. So this is a plugin we are going to use to have meetings in our application. And with this, we are going to power all the meetings that are going to take place in our application. So as you can see, it's Jitsi Meet 4.0.0 version that I'm using right now. It will get updated, I feel. And then we can copy this and go to our PubSpec YAML, or just go to the PubSpec assist to add Jitsi Meet to our application. So let's go to our PubSpec YAML, and here let's pass in Jitsi Meet version 4.0.0. Alright, it's running Flutter pub get for us. Let's stop the app execution because we don't want it to run. And in the meantime, let's look at this. So Jitsi Meet is an open source WebRTC JavaScript application that uses Jitsi Video Bridge to provide high quality, secure and scalable video conferences. I'll mention the disadvantages of using Jitsi Meet later on in the video, at the end of the video. But for now, let's look at how we can set it up. It also has its own advantages, like it's pretty easy to use and all of that stuff. So yeah, for the configuration in iOS, well, those who are, again reminding those who are not using iOS, like Mac OS, they cannot configure for iOS. It won't be proper and you won't be able to test your applications. And if you're using Windows or any other software or operating system, you can do it for Android, but not for iOS. You can skip to the timestamp I've mentioned in the description below to continue for Android. So for iOS, we need to make sure that our platform is 11.0. So we need to go to our pod file, and you can see Flutter pub get worked. Now we are getting this error over here because of Jitsi Meet web. So what we can do is run Flutter pub get again, and in the meantime we can change this platform iOS version to 11.0, and down here, instead of having this, it says that we need to have this. But when I tried this in my example application, like the demo application, this didn't work. So I made my own, and if you go to the source code and in the iOS folder in pod file, you can scroll to the bottom, copy this line and paste it down here, and this will work because, well, this works, and the thing in the readme didn't work for me. Alright, so now if we go back to the home screen, and now let's try to run our app. Actually, we need to make sure to do one more thing, that is go in the info.plist file, and here you can see they want to add all of these two permissions. We can copy this, go to the info.plist file and put it down the Google sign in key. Let's save this much, go to our home screen and run without debugging. Let's see if you're getting any errors or not now. And as you can see, our app has loaded up. That means Jitsi Meet has worked without any difficulties. But in case you have any difficulties, what I would suggest is go to the iOS folder, open in Xcode, and it will open in Xcode. Try running it from here. In most cases, it will give you an error of pip view controller not found, and it will show an issue from Jitsi Meet SDK. But what I would like to do is, well, run the application from here, and in case of any errors, it will show up somewhere here. Just click over there. Instead of clicking on the error message, what I would like you to do is click on the warnings and hit enter for all the warning suggestions that it will give to you and start running on them. That's how even I would, I tried different solutions and this one worked the best for me. I'll mention this in the description below. The one in the readme didn't help for me. So yeah, that's how I proceeded with it. In case of any errors, you can just click on enter, run over here. Here somewhere it will show you errors. Now you can click over there in the errors and just resolve all the warnings that it gives. You won't be able to resolve the errors because it won't give you the suggestions to fix it. And don't edit any files. Instead, just click on the warnings and click on the warnings and get started. That's how I did it. Alright. In case you have any doubts, let me know in the comment section below. I'll make sure to reply to it and resolve it. Alright. Now, after this, what I would like to do is create a video call screen. So for the video call screen, what I'm going to do is create a new screen called video. And actually before this, let's try to run it on our Android devices. So I've exited. I'll make sure to start Pixel 5. And now let's do some changes for Android. Now for Android, we'll copy this dependency from here, which we have to update. So we'll go to the build.gradle file. And here we are going to have 3.6.3 instead of 4.1.0. We have to replace that. And then we need to make sure that we even change this. So if we go to the Gradle wrapper, so we need to go to the Gradle.properties, Gradle-wrapper.properties, and then we have to edit the last line. But let's try to run it without updating this because it didn't work for me earlier. And one thing they don't mention, which we need to do, actually they have mentioned. All right. First of all, let's go to the Android manifest file. Here we need to pass in this line, so we can click on enter, pass in this line. Then we need to make sure to add tools replace line. Alright. And now we need to go to the app build Gradle. So we will go over there and we need to change this minimum SDK version to 24, not to 23. Alright. And now we'll add the ProGuard rule in a bit. But here we also need to make sure that the flutter.compile SDK version is flutter.compile SDK version, but the target SDK version is 29. Right. Now if we run without debugging for our Pixel 5 emulator, let's see what we get. And now in the meantime, we can work on ProGuard rules. So in our build.gradle android-app, so over here we need to go, and in the build types, in the release tag, we need to add these 3 properties that are mentioned here. So we can copy this and paste it down. Let's format this. And now we also need to make sure that we add ProGuard.rules file in our app directory, because that's what we need to add. And the ProGuard rule is going to be something that's mentioned over here, not over here, but if you go to my GitHub link, it will be mentioned there. So Android app ProGuard rules.pro. Just make sure to copy all of these lines because they don't mention most of the stuff that's there. And we can have ProGuard rules.pro and paste it down. Let's exit this and let's rerun our application since it has not built yet. So yeah, let's try to run it again and see what you're getting. And as you can see, we are getting an error over here, and this error is not related to our app. It's related to the storage space that is required by our Android emulator. So I quit the emulator and I want to show you a fix for this. So I'll go back to the Android Studio. If you're getting this kind of issue, what I would do if I was in your place. So I would go back I would click on more actions, and in the virtual device manager, I'll go over here. There are multiple ways of doing this. Alright, you can click on edit and edit all the settings for the your device, but what I'm going to do is wipe all the data. I'll click on yes, and you can see size on disk is 3.2 GB. So I'll exit this, and now I'll try to run my Pixel 5 emulator again. Now this will be a brand new emulator. It doesn't have all the extra applications that I had earlier because I wiped the data, and now I'm going to run my app again on it. If we have built our application, it means that I think we are successful in making Jitsi Meet work on Android emulator. So if you're getting any errors, please let me know in the comment section below. It's kind of difficult to have Jitsi Meet in your application, embedded in your application with Flutter, because of, well, its documentation is actually pretty poor. Alright, now let's try to run it again without debugging, and I'll show you the output once we get it. Alright, now if I click on Google sign in, I need to enter all of these credentials again because I wiped the data. So I'll see you after I enter all the data. So I would assume that Jitsi Meet is working pretty well for now. So if you have any storage issues or anything like that, what I would suggest you to do is run Flutter clean. With this method, you'll be able to clean all the Flutter files and then rerun our application. So yeah, if you have any doubts like that, just first find it on Google, please, and then if you don't find any solution, make sure to comment down below and I'll try to help you out. Alright, now having that in place, what we need to do is whenever we click on join meeting, we need to make sure that we are able to go to the video screen actually. But before that, we need to work on the new meeting screen. So whenever we click over here, new application or like a new meeting starts for us. So how are we going to do that? Alright, so our app has loaded up and now you can see that it's working. So I would assume that the Jitsi Meet is working for now. But let's see if you're getting any error if we just add the joining meeting option in our application. But now the next thing we want to work on is, well, displaying the correct screen, right? I mean, if we click over here, we're not seeing the appropriate screen. So what we're going to do is create a new screen. Let me just minimize the folders and close all the saved files. And here we are going to create a new screen called History Meetings Screen ... and this will contain all the history meetings that our application has. So like we are going to save it right in our database. So that's what it's going to have. And let me name this History Meeting Screen. Alright, so now we will take this, go to our home screen, and now we'll create a pages variable here, which will be a list of pages that we should be navigating to after, not an int, sorry, a list of pages, which will be a widget. Yeah. So these are the pages. So whenever we click on any of this, we need pages, right? Separate pages for them. So these are the pages that we have. The first screen we have is going to show us this screen. So all of this part here, this part. So what we're going to do is extract this widget. So we can do Control-Shift-R or just right click and go to refactor and refactor this. So what we're going to do is extract widget, and we're going to extract this widget to call it History Meeting. And now in our body, what we can do is take this return column part, go over here and return this for over here. Alright, now let's resolve this error by importing the necessary packages, and it has been resolved. Now we can again remove this class from here. We didn't have to specifically make the class because we could have refactored and removed. This was a good technique. Then here we are going to have History Meeting Screen. Alright, so this is what we have. Now we're going to take this pages and we're going to pass this in body. But since this is a list, we need to return one part of this. So what we're going to do is pages at page, which is the global local variable which changes whenever the page is changed. So if we are on the 0th page, which is the first page over here, it will show us the necessary widget. But if we go on second, for now we should get an error, and we are getting an error. Alright, now we are again here. Now let's pass in, actually we didn't need that in this part, so let's rename this. This is not history meeting screen, this is, let's say, meeting screen. This is not the history meeting screen. History meeting screen is not going to have anything. It's my bad, because I thought that's history meeting screen. Let's just rename this. Just call this meeting screen, my bad, and we're going to call this meeting screen. Alright, and now over here we're going to have meeting screen, so let's import that, and yeah, we have meeting screen. Again, just to test our application that we've done everything correctly, let's click over here and we're getting error. That means the app is running. Now here we're going to create history meeting screen now finally. And now we're going to import material package. We're going to have a stateless widget again, and we're going to call it history meeting screen. And we're going to return a container for now, but we'll fill this as and when we have stuff. So let's have history meeting screen. Let's import this. Let's even have a text widget that says what our next is going to be, which is contacts. And finally, a constant text which says, let's say, settings. Alright. Now here I didn't notice we had 5, so let me resolve my bug. There are many bugs that I've made during this application. Really sorry for that. Alright, so now if we go over here, you can see meet and chat, contact, settings, all of the stuff showing up properly. That means we have done everything correctly. So now the next thing we need to do is whenever we click on the new meeting button, we need to create a new random meeting for the user. How are we going to do that? Let's go to the meeting screen, which has all this code, and in the on pressed, we are going to create a new meeting. So now let's create a resource known as Jitsi underscore meet underscore methods dot, and here we are going to have just one function known as void create new meeting. Alright, so now let's create a class for this as well. I wasn't sure if we need to make one, but let's make it so that it's organized, and let's pass it over here. So for the void create new meeting, we will make it as an asynchronous process, and now we're going to wrap it with a try and a catch block. Alright, now here we are going to have feature flag, and you know what, instead of just randomly typing all of this stuff, let's go to the documentation and copy all of this. So we can have this. So let me just select the proper code and paste it over here, and now we need to require some stuff. So let's require this, and now we have to make some changes. As I said, the documentation is not updated and it's not good as such in my opinion. So let's type in the room, and the room is going to be whatever room we receive from our argument. So let's say string room name, and let's have this part as required. Since we are going to require multiple fields in my opinion, I'm not sure, so let's make it a named constructor, and now we're going to pass in a room name. Alright, now if you have your own server URL, make sure to type in the server URL, but we don't have our own, so it will take the normal random Jitsi meet server. Then we don't have a subject as well. If you want, you can put in. Now to display the name and all of that stuff, we can again go to the auth methods, where we'll create a getter basically to retrieve all the data of the auth methods, which is basically stored in this auth variable, right? So what we can do is user get user, and we'll have auth dot current user, and let's put in an exclamation mark over here, because we're going to use this user only when the current user is there, right? Because we are logged in and then we are using it. And now to display the name, what we're going to do is in user display name, we're going to have user. Actually, we need to also enable auth methods, right? Because we need to import them. So let's have auth methods equal to auth methods. Now let's take this auth methods and put it down. Auth methods dot user, which is the getter, dot display name. Right. Now we need the email, so we can get the email similarly. So we'll have auth methods dot user dot email. The user avatar is going to be auth methods dot user dot photo URL. For audio only, we'll need boolean value, so we'll have boolean is audio muted, boolean is video muted, and we need to require all of this, so let's have that and that. Now we need this much, so let's have audio only removed, because Zoom doesn't have that, is audio muted, and is video muted. Alright, hope I'm not forgetting anything. And now finally we just need to print our errors, right? Cool. So now if we go back to the meeting screen, and here whenever we click on new meeting, what we need to do? Well, we will have our Jitsi meet methods dot create new meeting, and instead of making it create new meeting, let's type in create meeting, because that sounds much better. And let's create a meeting. So in our onPressed function, let's go to the top over here, and let's have create meeting, and we're going to have an asynchronous function. And let me put this, and this will be create new meeting, because we want to create a new meeting, right? And now for this, what we're going to do is remove the constant, because we're going to initialize a variable that is going to be a final, and we're initializing a variable. So we'll have Jitsi meet methods, and let's type in Jitsi meet method equal to Jitsi meet methods. We'll take the Jitsi meet methods, and we'll do Jitsi meet methods dot create meeting. Now I made this create meeting instead of create new meeting, because we will also use this method for joining a new meeting. Alright. Then for the room name, we are creating a new meeting, right? So to create a new meeting, what we need to do is create a random UID, and don't ask the user for the random name. So we are going to do that using var random is equal to random, and now string room name is equal to random dot next int. And now I want to create a random 7-digit number. Alright, so what I'm going to do is put in 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 zeros plus 7 zeros over here. That is the lower and the upper limit. I hope this is 7 zeros. Alright, and now convert this to a string, because room name is going to be a string, which is just a number. Right, and now for create a new meeting, we're not going to ask the user if the audio is muted or not, because he's going to be alone in the meeting. So we're going to set both of them to true. Awesome. Now we can go to the home screen, and instead of adding meeting screen, let's have this. And let's rerun our application just to see if our work is happening or not. Alright, now if we click over here, we haven't binded anything to our function, that's why it's not responding. So we can have create new meeting passed in over here. Now let's try to run our application. And here you can see a new meeting. We are joining a new meeting, but I'm not sure if it will show up on this Android emulator. So I'm going to switch to the iOS simulator. Alright. So I'm going to switch to the iOS simulator. If you want to test it on Windows, make sure to test it on the Android physical device. That will help. Because it didn't work for me on Android emulator. Probably because the SDK version is 32 and it requires 29. But I'm not sure. So try it on a physical device. It should work. Alright, so our app has built, and here you can see the app. I'll remove the Android simulator from here, and now if I click on new meeting, and we are not getting any error and we are in the meeting, that means our app is now working really well. And now if we click on allow access, it will allow access, but we can't here because there's no other user. I'll show you the demo again at the end of the app with my physical device, but for now let's keep this. Let's exit the call, and here we have exited as well. Now the next thing we want to work on is whenever we click on the join meet, we need to go back to the another screen where we'll show the output basically. So let's do that. Alright, so now if you didn't understand what I meant by what I said, you can definitely wait. I'll explain it to you again in a bit. So basically we need to create a file known as video call screen.dart, and now we're going to import the material dart, and here we're going to have a stateful widget, I guess, so that we can use the init state functionality that we have. So let's have a constant video call screen, and here we're going to have a scaffold. Now what I mean by this is, well, first of all, let's go to the main.dart file. Let's have this route initialized as well. So we'll have video call context, and then we'll have video call screen. Now this will be a constant, and we'll have video call. Alright, so now if we go to the meeting screen, and here we create a function known as join meeting, and what we basically need to do is navigator dot push named, and the route name is going to be, let's say, /video call, whatever we passed in the routes in the main.dart file. And we need a context, so let's accept this from our join meeting. So we have a context, and now we need to bind this to this on pressed. So we'll have join meeting with the context passed to it. Perfect. So now if we click on join meet, we are on the new separate page, which is pretty good. Now we can start our working on it. So here, first of all, we are going to have an app bar which just says, join and meeting. So we'll have an elevation of 0 again, then a background color of background color, and then we need a title of constant text which says join a meeting. Now this will have a style, and the text style will just increase the font size to 18, because if you don't put in a text font size, it will not look like zoom. This does look like it. Perfect. And now since I said that the center title is not there on Android and we want it, so we'll do center title true. Now in the body, we need to pass in certain things. So the body is going to have a column, and this column is first of all going to have a text field. And I forgot to pass in the children property, and in the children it's going to have a text field. Now this text field is going to have a controller which we are going to create. Then it will have max line of 1, because this is for the meeting ID, alright. So whatever meeting ID the user wants to join in with. Then the text align will be text align dot center, and the keyboard type is going to be text input type dot number, because our room that is going to be generated is only going to be based on numbers and not any alphabets. That's why. Now we need to decorate it, and we'll have a constant input decoration where we're going to have a fill color of secondary background color from our colors.dart file. Then we're going to set fill to true, then a border of input border dot none, and then a hint text of, what is this, room ID, right? So room ID. Alright, cool. Now let's create a controller which will be a text editing controller. So we will have late text editing controller, and we are going to name it meeting ID controller, and let's create an init state function to initialize this. So we'll have meeting ID controller equal to text editing controller. Why have we done using the late, and why didn't we do it something like this? Right, we could have done it like this as well, but you'll know why we did like this in a short period of time when we create another controller for our name. That's when we'll understand why we did this method. Alright, so now we'll have meeting ID controller, and let's see what we're getting. And it looks something like this. It says it's not initialized. Let's try to run it again and see if it's initialized or not. So if we go to the join meeting screen, here we have our room ID. Cool. Now we need to make sure that the text field is of a certain height. So we'll have sized box, and we'll have a height of 60, and let's add some padding to it as well. So the padding is going to be content padding edge insets dot from LTRB, meaning left to right, left top right bottom. So from the left I want 16, then 8, then 0, and then 0 again. Cool. Now you can see our application looking a bit different. That's fine. Alright, after having that in place, the room ID, we need to create something similar for our text field, the name input, if the user wants to change anything, right? So we have that, and now we'll ask for the name from the user here. So let's have name, and here you can see room ID showing up. Is this strange? Yeah, it's name showing up. Awesome. So if we go to the controller, here we will have name controller, and now for the name controller we'll have again another controller, name controller, and now I'll tell you why we add text editing controller initialization in the init state. Now for the name controller, we don't want this to we don't want the text input field to show up empty as first, right? We want it to be with the certain value, and that certain value is the name of the user. If like the user has signed in, right? We want to display their name, so we're going to do that using the text property, and we're going to have final auth methods equal to auth methods. Now we will have auth methods dot user dot display name, right? And now if we go to the join meeting, we see Naman Ranawat, which is like the name of the email that I'm using, showing up over here. That's why we added here. If you added here like this, it wouldn't work. Something like this wouldn't work, because you cannot use the use this in the initializing part itself, right? That's why we created this in the init state. Awesome. After that, we need to leave some space. So let's go back to the size box and let's leave some space of height 20. And now an inkwell showing where we create a custom button of, let's say, joining. So we have on tap and we're going to have join meeting. Right. Now the child is going to be a constant padding, and this padding I've decided on my own. So let's have padding edge insets dot all 8. Then the child is going to be a text, not a constant text, because we have made the padding only constant. So we have join, and the style is going to be again not a constant because we have added a constant over here. And the style is going to be font size 16. Alright, now let's take this join meeting function and create it at the top. So we have join meeting initialized over here. And now we can see a join button showing up as well. Now the next thing we need to work on is creating the two meeting options. What I mean by this? So basically here we need to show a meeting option which has something like this: a text showing up, then a switch showing up, then again an option, then again a switch, something like that. So let's work on it. To do that, what we're going to do is go to the inkwell, and here we are going to have a sized box of height 20 again. And now we are going to create a custom widget known as meeting option. So we'll have meeting underscore option dot. Here we are going to import material dart, and then we are going to create a stateless widget called meeting option. Now we're going to have a container return where the height is going to be 60, a fixed height. Then the color is going to be a secondary background color. Then the child is going to be a row, and the row will have children of one a text. So let's have text, and we need to accept the text from the user, and then a style, and I'll just mention the text style, which will be of the font size 16. So we can have final string text, and we'll have required this dot text. Awesome. So now let's try to pass this meeting option down over here. So we have meeting option, and the first text that we will have is don't, and I want to put something like this, but it's giving me an error, right? So what I can do is put in \t don't join a meeting, and instead of doing this, what we need to do is this. Let's say something like this. I hope this works, and yeah, it does. Awesome. So the only thing over here is just to have a little padding from all the sides. That will look very good. So what we can have is a padding of 8 from all the sides. I think that should be fine. Yeah, looks good. Now let's have a switch, and let's create a switch as well. Now the value is going to be received from the constructor again. So let's have final final boolean is mute. We are not going to check if is audio mute or is video mute. Let's just put in is mute required dot this is dot is mute, and we can put is mute as the value. Now in the on change we can have another function, but what we are going to do is on changed we are again going to have a final function of bool, which will be is on change. Alright, so what is this function? Well, this function basically tells that we need a function from the year from this screen wherever we are using meeting option, which will have a parameter of boolean, which is going to be passed by this on change because it has a boolean type as well. And we just need a function that has a parameter of boolean. Alright, so we can just pass in on changed. And now we have that. So now let's go back over here and let's add the required fields. Alright, now is mute is going to be, is audio muted or is video muted? So we have to create those variables up top. So we will have boolean is audio muted is equal to true, a bool is video muted equal to true. So initially they are going to be true, and that value we are going to pass into is mute. So let's have is audio muted, and on change what we are going to do is whatever value we get, we need to change that, right? So what we are going to do is create a function. Let's create a function out of this UI. So we can have is video, actually audio, right? Because we are in the audio section. So we'll have is audio muted. And let's create another one. And this will have turn off my video. And the on change is going to be is video muted. Now you can see I've typed don't join a meeting over here. We want don't join audio or mute audio, something like that, whatever you want, right? Now we will have outside of the scaffold and outside of over here this build function, we're going to have is video muted. Instead of naming on change like this, I think we can name it on audio muted and on video muted. Alright, so now we can create these functions. Alright, now what do we want to do? So whenever there is an audio mute, we want to set state and we want to change is audio muted equal to whatever value we get. So we can have boolean value. So it will be boolean question mark value, because that's what on change will return, a dynamic boolean. And now over here as well we will have set state. Let's remove this and see if you're getting any error. We're not. That's cool. Now let's have set state for the video muted as well. So we will have is video muted and we will set that to value as well. And let's pass in over here. Awesome. And we have both of these showing up. Now you can see that they're very close to each other. So we can go to the meeting option and in the row we will have main axis alignment as main axis alignment dot space between, and you can see this showing up. But now the last issue over here, as you can see, is this button is not specifically for iOS, right? Well, you can see that this kind of button, the switch that we have, shows up for Android. It doesn't look good on iOS. So what we're going to do is switch dot adaptive. With this widget dot adaptive, by putting it in front of multiple widgets, you can make sure that this widget is clearly adaptive, meaning if you're on iOS it will show something like this, if you're on Android it will show the previous widget of switch. Right, now this does look better and that's amazing. Alright, so if we have a room ID, let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and click on join, nothing is happening. Well, that's certainly because we haven't created a join function. So let's create a join meeting. So for the join meeting, what we're going to do is essentially, before doing all of this, let's just dispose as well. Let's create a dispose method. I'm not getting the option of dispose, so let's create it manually. And in the dispose method, we need to make sure that we dispose these controllers that we have. The name controller dispose, and we also need to make sure that we dispose of the Jitsi meet. So we have Jitsi meet dot remove all listeners, so that there is no bad effects, after effects or anything as such. We need to do this for the this will avoid all the memory leaks, and we need to do this for the meeting screen as well, which we can do, or let it be, you can just do it by yourself. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is in the join meeting, let's go to the top and again create a method of final Jitsi meet methods. Jitsi meet method equal to Jitsi meet methods. We'll take this Jitsi meet methods and we'll do just Jitsi meets methods dot create meeting. Now the room name is going to be whatever room name the user provides us with. So that will be the meeting ID controller dot text. And now the last thing we need to do is go to the create meeting function, and you can see that we are giving the display name as the original name. Now that's possible only in the new meeting, not in the join meeting. So what we're going to do is create a new string called string name, and this will not be a required field and it will be empty for now. Now here we'll check if the name dot is empty, then what are we going to do? If the name is empty, that means that the user has not provided the meeting name, like the username. Let's type your username. So if the username is empty, which will be empty when we create a new meeting, we are going to give the username. So we'll create a new variable here called string name, and this name is going to be whatever name that's there over here, and we'll mark this as this. Alright, else the name is going to be whatever the name is. Else the name is going to be the username. So let's put an else condition and let's pass it over here. So with this, what we've done basically is, well, let me just put it over here before I forget and then I'll explain. Alright, so here what I've done is I've not made this as a compulsory field and not a required field, because if the user doesn't pass in the username, which will be in the case of creating a meeting. So whenever we create a meeting, the username will not have any string. That means it will get the login user display name that it has. So if the username is empty, that means we have created a meeting. So the name is going to be the display name provided by auth methods. Else the name is going to be the username that's provided, which will be provided over here. So here what we can do is pass in name. Actually it's called username, and the username is going to be name controller dot text. Awesome. So we have created a meeting. Let's try to run our app and see what we're getting. Alright, so if I click on join meeting, I'm redirected to a new room. So let's click 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and click on, I'll just to show you that it's working, I'll mute my audio and I'll unmute it and then join. And you can see the mute icon is not muted. As you can see here, it wasn't muted. So that means our app has been working. We're not getting any errors in our terminal. And now we are asking to join. And well, let's see what we're getting. Now that's because I've created a new meeting before that. You can see it over here. So yeah. Now if I try to join in with, let's say, something like this, it won't throw us an error like that. You can see. And now if I change my name to Rivan Ranawat and pass in some stuff like this and click on join, you can see Rivan Ranawat showing up. Cool, right? Awesome. So this is how we're going to have our application run. Let's exit this call. And yeah, so that means creating a call and joining a call is working. So the next thing we want to work on is whenever a user creates a meeting or joins a meeting, we need to make sure that we store the meetings in the Firestore and display it in the meetings tab. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to create a Firestore methods resources. So we'll have Firestore underscore methods dot dart. Again, we are going to create a class out of this. So we'll have Firestore methods. Here we'll have final Firebase Firestore equal to Firebase Firestore dot instance. And here we will have void add to meeting history string meeting name. This is going to be an asynchronous process, so we'll also have a try and catch block. Awesome. So now what do we want to do? Well, if there's any error, let's just print the error, nothing more. And in the try, we just need to, well, get the Firestore dot collection users dot document, and we need the user ID. So let's have final Firebase auth underscore auth equal to Firebase auth dot instance. We'll take this auth and have auth dot current user dot uid, and we'll again have a sub collection. We are storing it in sub collection because we need to create like an object, right? Because in the we are not just storing the UID of the user or the name of the user. We are storing the name of the meeting and the created at, like the time it was created. That's why we need two. So we'll have meetings, and then we will have add functionality. Now in the add, what do we want? Well, first of all, the meeting name, which will be meeting name, and finally a created at property, which will be date time dot now. Right now we will, let's see if we're getting any error here. No, we are not. Awesome. Let's remove this Firebase core package that is not needed, and in the video call screen we'll go to the create meeting. In the Jitsi meet methods, here we are again going to have on the top, we can have final Firestore methods, Firestore method equal to Firestore methods. We can take this Firestore methods and have Firestore methods dot add to meeting history, and we're going to have the meeting name. So what is the meeting name? Meeting ID, or whatever we get from here. What is it? Room name. Awesome. And thus we add to the meeting history. So let's save this, and alright, so now if I click on join meeting, actually let's just create a meeting, that would be faster. Alright, this should happen. Now let's refresh our console, Firebase console, and here we have a meetings collection, a randomly generated ID, and here we have created at and meeting name. Fantastic. So that means it's working. Alright, now what do we want to do? Well, we have to go to our history meeting screen. Now instead of returning a container, let's return a stream builder. Right now this builder will have a context and a snapshot, and thus it will return something, but we want something like this. And now we also need a stream. Now what is the stream? Well, let's go back to our Firestore methods and let's create a stream. Now this stream will be getter, and this getter will, let's name this meetings history, and we're going to return Firestore dot collection, basically whatever we had over here. We'll have that same thing again, dot snapshot, and that's what we are going to have. Now if you want to be particular about what the type of the stream is going to be, you can come hover over this, copy all of this and paste it over here. That will give you the exact precise type of the stream. which will help us ahead. So basically we want to get a snapshot of all the documents in the meetings collection of that particular user. And now if we have stream, what do we want to do? Firestore methods dot meetings history. Now in the builder we can again check if snapshot dot connection state is equal to connection state dot waiting. Then we are going to return a constant center child circular progress indicator. Right. Now after this we are going to return a list view builder. So after the loading process has taken place, we are going to return a list view builder, and this list view builder will have again a context and an index that it will give us. The title will be, let's say, the text, and the text that will show up is room name, and not this, but it will actually return directly a widget, so no need of this. Let's create an arrow function and it will return a list style. Alright, let's copy this from here and paste it over here. Alright, the title is the room name, and what is the room name? Well, it's just snapshot dot data, which can be considered as dynamic dot docs at particular index, and that's meeting name. Alright, so this is what we have. As you can see, this part. So now if we go over here, we're not seeing anything because we haven't set an item count. I mean, we can see, but we are getting this error, and that's because we have not set the item count, and the item count is going to be all of this that we have dot length, because docs is a list, that's why. And now if we come back, we're not getting any error, and you can see the room name. You can style it ahead, but I'm not going to spend much time, just styling it. Now again we need a subtitle for the text, and here we are going to have joined on, and now we need to format the date. To format the date, we're going to use a package known as Intel. Link will be mentioned in the description for it. So now what are we going to do? Well, joined on, and we're going to format the date that we have. Now what is the date that we have? Well, basically all of this, but instead of meeting name, we're going to have created at. So we'll have created at, and let's run our application in the meantime so that we don't waste more time, right? And now we need to do date format over here. So date format. Alright, so now we can have date format dot ymd, which will be something like this. Yeah, something like this. And now we can have snapshot. Let's have something ymmd, and now we can format this. We'll have another bracket, and we'll put a bracket over here. We don't need to put a bracket over here, but instead over here. And now we can convert this to date as well, because this is not in the date, it is in the timestamp format, right? So yeah, we have this. Alright, now this should work, I hope. So if we go to the meetings, you can see the timestamp showing up. Again, if we refresh our app and go to the meetings, again it's showing a timestamp. That's because we haven't added the format method on ymmd. So let's have format as well. So date format dot ymmd as a function dot format it according to this convention. And now if we go to the meetings, joined on March 1, 2022, that means our app is working. It's working. And now you can style it ahead by bolding this, then making it look neater and prettier. But I'm going to end it over here. And now we have new meeting, join meeting, and the meeting history. Last thing we need to work on is showing the settings. So what we can do is in the settings part, let's go to the home screen .dart file, and here instead of showing settings, here we are going to have a custom button with the text log out, and whenever this is on pressed, we need to make sure that we use auth methods. So let's have final auth methods, and now we have to go to the auth methods to create a sign out function. So let's have void sign out asynchronous try and catch. Well, print e dot, well, let's just print e, and here we are going to have auth dot sign out. Perfect. Now we'll have auth methods dot sign out. Hopefully this works, and here you can see we are getting instance member auth methods can't be accessed in an initializer, so we can remove this. Let's copy this and remove this and have auth methods dot sign out like this. This will work. Awesome. Now if we go to the settings, you can see a logout button as well. And if we click on logout, we have logged out. Again, we can sign in. I'll select a Gmail account. And we have joined in. You can see in the meetings, joined on March 29, 2022. That means our app is working pretty well. Now, just to show you a demo of the app working on Android and iOS both simultaneously, again, I'll connect my Android device and get back to you. Alright, so as you can see, our app has loaded up on my Android emulator. I'll click on Google Sign In. And you can see I've signed in automatically. Alright, so now I'll create a new meeting. And connecting to my meeting. And here we have a meeting. As I've mentioned to you in the demo itself that I'm using dark mode. That's why all of these buttons are not visible. But now if I go to the join meeting and join over here, so let's say the room ID is 147856761 and join. It's connecting to me to the meeting. And well, you can see Naman Ranawat joined the meeting. There are two Naman Ranawats now, but that's fine. Now we can chat. Hey, and if we tap over here, you can see a new message came in. Hey, awesome. So now if I say something from my iOS simulator, hello. I hope you can hear two voices. Basically, let me just mute, and I hope you could hear the two voices that would show up. And now I've switched on my camera, and if I show it to you on both the screens, we can see all the stuff happening. And now this is what we have. I hope this is clear to you. So that means everything is working. I hope the app was interesting. Now there are disadvantages of using Jitsi Meet. Some of them are, well, as you could see, the documentation is not pretty well set up, and it's very difficult for a beginner to go through it and follow along. I had difficulties myself. I spent 2 days just on one error that wasn't mentioned well in the documentation just to set Jitsi Meet up. Now that's one thing, and the other con I feel is the app size becomes too big because of this application. It takes a bit more time to load up and a bit more time to do all of that stuff, in my opinion. I mean, so that's a thing to consider. Now the pros, as you could see, were Jitsi Meet could be set up pretty quickly if we knew how to go about things and how we could integrate Jitsi Meet in our application. So if they improve the readme, that part is done. If you are setting up the Jitsi Meet on your server, there isn't much documentation of how you'll go about well, adding the details, like all the setting up the server stuff, you won't be able to do by your own. Like, it's very difficult because of Jitsi Meet. Now, another pro that I didn't mention is that Jitsi Meet is an open source project, and even the Jitsi Meet SDK that we're using is open source. So anyone can contribute to that and improve their README as well as the other stuff that's inside of it. So that's good. Encryption and all of that is secure with Jitsi Meet. It's pretty well secured, and there's no need to worry about it. The other pro that I forgot to mention is if we click over here, you can see in the more options, you can share a YouTube video or start a live stream using this app, which is pretty insane. You get to go do all of that inbuilt in your application and even start recording, right? So these are the pros and cons you might want to consider. And the other con you might have noticed is that we aren't able to customize the video call screen according to our preferences. We want it to update according to our preferences, right? I mean, if we don't want any of this option, you can still customize it and, add some listeners, which I forgot to mention completely. Basically, whenever, let me just close this and go to the Jitsi Meet methods. Over here, whenever we have Jitsi Meet methods and in the join meeting, you can see that it has a Jitsi meeting listener. So in this listener, whenever we do Jitsi Meet listener, you can listen to multiple methods, as you can see. If you go to the documentation as well, you can see that it has multiple Jitsi Meet methods, like on conference will join, on conference join. So if you want to do any extra stuff, you can do it with this. But the only con I feel is that this UI isn't very customizable according to my preferences. I don't want my UI to look something like this. I want it to match it with my theme or something else. So that's not possible yet. That's the only issue, but there is more customization which you can go through the documentation and find it out, like having listeners, you're having any of these options that you have enabled or disabled. You can see, like if you want chat to not show up, it will not show up, all of that stuff. So you can go through and add all of that stuff, but this is all for the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.